What's going on, everybody? John Eric Poli here with my MMA News, and today's guest is coming off a win on the PFL Challenger Series. Joining me once again is Kaytlin Neil. Kaytlin, nice to see you. Appreciate the time as always.
Of course. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, no problem at all. So let's start here, right? A lot to digest before we even get to this fight because we did an interview in the lead up to your fight, and at that point, you didn't even have an opponent because you had an opponent fall out. You had no idea, am I going through a camp for no reason at all? This diet's going to suck if I don't have an opponent. Eventually, you get one. Explain that whole process because that was a bit of a headache.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure I was even going to fight, but luckily Catherine took it on 10 days notice, I think. But yeah, it was kind of funny because like my whole game plan with the other girl was just kind of like gonna go in, take her down, and hopefully like finish her in the first round. But then once I got Catherine, I'm like, she's a ground girl, she's a brown belt in jujitsu. So I was like, well, everything that I've been training for the past like 4 weeks, put that out the window. We'll go back to striking and like work that game plan again.
So I guess how important is it then whenever you're in a training camp? I know obviously there's like you said, there's the game plan to go into something like you were focused on a ground game. Well, obviously now opponent changes. So I guess how important is it like when you're in a camp to make sure you're always focusing on those other areas all the time, just in case, God forbid, something like this happens?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always focusing on it. Like, I still go to jujitsu, I still go to striking, I still go to wrestling every single week. It's just that like what I'm doing in my sparring rounds is more geared towards what my opponent is going to be like, I guess, in a fight. So I'll pick partners that are more similar to what my opponent's like. But yeah, I mean, I'm always working on everything, so I'm prepared for whatever happens. But I tend to like go in working against my opponent's strengths.
All right, let's get now to fight week here. So, first off, if anybody isn't following you yet on any social media platform, I'm going to highly suggest they do so because you take people through the back scenes of a fight week so well. Like that whole entire fight week, I just loved following along. Like everything that from signing this or photo day or whatever, you documented it all, and it was pretty cool to see. And it seemed like you were really enjoying the process there. So, what was the PFL fight week like for you? And is that true? Where it seemed like you were taking it all in and enjoying the whole entire process.
Yeah, I mean, with fighting, like you never know when it's going to be your last fight, right? So I just go in with that mentality, being like, this could be my last fight. I'm going to go in there and enjoy this whole thing. I think through fighting, like it's not just about like the fight and the outcome. It's about like the process and the journey it takes to get there and the people you meet along the way. So I really try to enjoy the like weeks and especially like the week leading up to the fight. But as far as like working with the PFL goes, they were so fun and they were so awesome. Everyone there was so nice. And they actually like really do like treat the fighters really well. So it was cool to experience that.
All right, so now let's get into the action here a little bit. So we'll start with the opening round in which you get headbutted. You told me off there 5 stitches. I'm sure everybody that's watching the interview too, they might see it's still healing up a little bit the eye
A little
there. Yeah,
bit.
there's the mark there. So looks good though. You can tell if anybody again follows you on social media. Last week really black and blue, so it is healing up very nicely there. Anyway, just take us through that round and that headbutt there that you received, and if that had any effect on the performance at all. That you were bleeding, probably hard to see out of the eye there with all the blood coming down.
Yeah, so I got headbutted. I think it was like within the first like minute or two of the fight. I don't remember much of the first round. I think my like adrenaline just goes in and it's like fight or flight, and I don't remember much of my fights until I go back and watch it after. And but I knew I was like cut, but I didn't realize how bad it was. And I honestly didn't know that I had blood dripping down my face the whole fight. I had no clue. It really didn't affect me that much. And I'm glad I didn't see myself up on like a jumbo screen or like a projector or something, because that probably would have freaked me out. I'd have been like, what the heck? That's my face right now. But like once I went back and looked at pictures, I was like, oh, I was actually bleeding pretty good.
Yeah, it's sometimes like the adrenaline takes over in those moments too, and you don't even realize like it's as bad as it really is there. But let's get now into some of the rest of the action here at the fight. The second round in particular, I know you were very tough in those clinching moments there. Just kind of take us through that round, how that thing, how the round kind of played itself out.
Yeah, so I honestly don't like remember most of the fight. Like I just remember I was a lot stronger than her in the clinch, and I was a lot stronger than her against the cage. So I held her against the cage a little bit, tried to throw some strikes. And I think it was like the third round, I shot in for a takedown and took her down. And once I like took her back off of that, I was like, why the heck did I not shoot in earlier? I knew my game plan like was to keep it more striking, but then once I felt her on the ground, I was like, dang it, I could have definitely like finished the fight from there.
Well, it all worked itself out because you did still get the win. And we'll go to a few post fight stuff afterwards, too. I just have one other, I guess, question about the fight in particular. I know you mentioned kind of a bit of a blur, everything. You didn't really get a chance to watch everything back, but I just want to get your thoughts, too. It's bad enough you already got headbutted in the eye, but then later in the third round, eye poke as well. She lost the point. I guess same kind of along the lines of the headbutt question there. Just kind of what was going through your mind when that happened, and was there any effect to the performance there? How bad was the eye poke? Because a lot of commentators, I know, like Daniel Cormier always says, like getting an eye poke could be one of the worst. It could even be worse than a low blow sometimes. If the eye poke's real bad.
Yeah, so I saw her like a couple times, I think in like the first or second round. When she threw a punch, her hand was like straight out. So I like warned the ref. I was like, hey, I was like, can you tell her to close her fist when she punch or when she punches? And then the ref's like, hey, yeah, or whatever, and like says something. And then I think it was like the third round where she eye poked me twice, and that was like awful. I've never really been eye poked before, and so I was like, that's not fun. But then I think like recovering from the eye poke was way worse than even getting my cut or stitches. My eye was like closed and just like watering the whole time because I got a scratch on my cornea. But that lasted for like 24 hours. But once that was healed up, it was like not bad at all. So the eye poke was way worse than the cut, even though the cut looked like way worse. But I feel like that was like the dirtiest fight I've ever been in. I've never been headbutted. I've never been eye poked. I got both in one fight, and it was all in this same eye.
Okay, so now let's get to the post-fight stuff here. So how the show works is there are celebrity judges. They essentially pick one person to a PFL contract. I know you weren't selected to the contract, but just the thoughts on everything that went into the PFL show, and are you hoping that that might be a future thing, that you went in, you fought in the main event on the show, and that they're gonna hopefully come to terms with something, and maybe and they want to build a division, right? 125-pound division. So is that in the cards for the future?
Yeah, so I mean, they're trying to build a 125-pound division and they need girls for it. You can't run a whole division off of, I think, one or two girls that they have right now. So it looks like they're going to be having me back in like fall time. I don't really have like an exact timeline or anything, but as of right now, it looks like I will be fighting for the PFL again.
And I guess how excited are you for that too? Obviously, you said right they take very good care of their fighters earlier in the interview, and you had such a great time on Fight Week. I'm sure you got to be absolutely excited to once again, or hopefully at least once again, fight under the PFL banner.
Yeah, no, I'm like really excited to fight for them again. I've always wanted to be with a promotion that like kind of like held on to me and like tried to promote me or push me a little bit. And so PFL seems to be doing that really well. And I'm excited that they want me to fight for them as much as I want to fight for them. So I think it is going to be like really fun fighting for them again, especially now that I like know the people a little bit more personally and I've met them and I've seen how like their shows run. I'm excited I'm excited to do it again.
I say, does that kind of take a lot of pressure off too? Because like when you were on the Ultimate Fighter, right? You're fighting to try to get a UFC contract. Then you get moved over to Invicta, where obviously, again, Invicta's a great promotion, feeder to a lot of big things, but essentially that's not the end all be all there. You're trying to get to one of those bigger ones. Does it take the pressure off now knowing like, all right, well, I'm probably going to be fighting the PFL in the fall. Everything seems to kind of be going in that direction. I don't have to worry about trying to make this big, massive, performance somewhere to try to get a shot at one of these.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, I want to perform no matter what, so it doesn't take any of that pressure off. But it's nice being able to know, like, I do have next fight with this promotion around this time. So I don't have to like go around being like, okay, who wants me to fight for them? How much do you want to pay me? Like that kind of stuff. I don't have to like worry about that negotiation or anything. It's just like, oh, cool. I'm with them. When they want me to fight, I'll fight for them. And then, yeah, I mean, they're possibly thinking about doing $1 million tournament next year. That's why they're trying to build a division. And so that's what I want to go into. I want to be a millionaire. So
Hey, a lot of big things on the horizon there. We're looking forward to seeing all that. Before we wrap things up, though, I got one more PFL question, then we'll go outside the cage for a question or two. Last PFL question, though, for your fight on the Challenger Series, celebrity judges were Paige Van Zant, Megan Anderson, and Sam Darnold. Sam was there via Zoom. I know you didn't get to meet him, but just what was it like? I know you have a relationship with Megan a little bit. She called your Invicta fight, but what was it like just interacting with Megan and with Paige for a little bit?
yeah, so Megan's been really cool ever since I met her from my last fight back in September. She is just like really chill, really nice, really like friendly, and I enjoy being around her for the small parts that I've been around here. But when I so after my fight, I had to go back into like a dark room and get my eye cut or my eye stitched up by the doctor, and the whole time the doctor was like taking so long to stitch my eyes. I was like, "Don't let Paige Van Zant leave! Don't let Paige Van Zant leave!" I'm like, "Please wait." I'm like, "Tell her to wait. Tell her I want to talk to her." And I was like worried that I wasn't going to be able to meet her because I'm a huge fangirl of Paige Van Zant. She was like one of the girls that I wanted to fight in the UFC just because I think like me and her would make a good fight matchup. But yeah, meeting her was awesome. It was like everything I hoped for. She was like so nice, so cute, so bubbly, like just how she looks on like TV or like before her fights or interviews. So it was really cool being able to meet her. I got a picture with her and Megan, and they were so nice, and they like talked to me about my eyelashes afterwards and stuff. They're just pretty funny. It was cool to meet them. They just felt like they were like friends at that point.
Yeah, well, you're not the only person that's a big, you could say fangirl, or if you want to say somebody being a fanboy of Paige Van Zandt. I remember back in 2017 when she was still with the UFC, I was out in Vegas. It was International Fight Week. They had like a women's panel. She was one of the persons on it, and the line to meet her afterwards was extremely long, so you're not the only fan person out there. Let's go outside the cage now for just one moment. I guess it still is kind of related to the fight, to fighting here a little bit, because you, right, you're in Utah, but when you do your training camps, you got to syndicate out in Las Vegas. Well, we talked about how, your training camp, trying to get ready for one opponent, didn't know if you had an opponent 10 days out. In the midst of all that, though, your cat got sick, correct? So you had to go back and forth, back to Utah, back to Vegas. Hope the cat's all right. Just explain what that whole process was like of having to run back and forth to take care of the animals.
It was a nightmare. So I got news of my new opponent, and like I was a little bit intimidated at first because she's 3-1. All of her fights ended in the first round. So it's like I don't really know how good or not she is, but she's finishing all these girls in the first round. So her jiu-jitsu must be like pretty good. So I'm like a little like hesitant at first, like accept this new opponent. And plus I was like on my period, so I was really emotional. And then on top of it, Potato, my cat, decides to stop eating because I guess cats do that if their owner is gone for extended amounts of time. So she stopped eating, and then she got nauseated because she wasn't eating and she was dehydrated. And so she was slowly like killing herself from not eating. So I had to drive all the way from Vegas, all the way up to Utah to take her to two different pet visits or vet visits. And then yeah, $1,700 later, we got her to got her to start eating again. And I'm like, I adopted her because I thought she was going to be like a really chill, easy cat. And she's only gonna be like $100, but now she's up to like, I don't know, I think like $10,000 in vet bills. She's right here. Let's grab her. So this is a very expensive cat right here.
There she is, Potato on the program.
But she's so cute and so worth it.
I wanted to ask you too about the name. Obviously, she was adopted. I'm assuming that was a name that she was given before. But what's the backstory with the name there?
Yeah, so her real name, I guess like her first name was Jasmine. And I think like the reason why I got a cat was for like comedic relief. Like I really like to laugh, and I think cats are funny. So I named her Potato because like anytime I like introduce her to someone, they kind of like what? Like give me like a little weird look, or they like laugh or something or whatever. And it's just not a usual name. So that's why I named her it, just so I can kind of like laugh every time I say her name.
It is a funny name, that's for sure. And I know she obviously makes a lot of appearances too on different social media channels. So speaking of social media channels, let's wrap things up here today. Social media, so people know where to follow you at. You have any management, sponsorships that you got to plug, anything like that? Floor is yours. Take it away.
Yeah, of course. Always thank you to my team in Utah, Agima Jiu Jitsu, and then in Vegas Syndicate. Then my manager, Daniel Rubenstein, and Century Martial Arts for always being in my corner, supporting me. Frey Skincare and Kiava Clothing, they're awesome. They always support me as well. And yeah, I mean, as far as social media goes, if you type in Katniss, like Katniss from the Hunger Games, I should be one of the first people to pop up, and you can follow me there. It's at Kaytlin Katniss MMA on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram.